Great evening. Welcome to Why Should I Be Ashamed? I'm Sheila Calvert, your host for our great topic tonight. We've so intentionally been waiting for you. We're coming into your homes tonight and Facebook, and I want to say thank you so much for participating with us every week and sharing our stories and sharing your stories and giving your comments. Would you do one thing for me tonight? Would you like and share? And we'll be right back. Let's press out to our friends and reach out to our friends so they can hear this conversation live tonight. Great evening. Thank you so much. Let me first start by thanking each and every one of you for coming in having this convo with us every week. Also, I would like to thank you all for purchasing a copy of my book. It is a great read and it's an easy read. And make sure that you get your copy so you can flow with us as we go through these stories and these conversations, and this will help you ease and to know my story. I want to thank you all for calling me and speaking with me and sharing your stories. And a lot of the stories are very, very intimate and personal. I don't name names, but sometimes I do share events. Let me say, first of all, these conversations are not just about sex. It really is about a crime. It really is about a crime of violence when we're talking about sexual abuse or we're talking about unconsensual behaviors and things like that. And I would like to maybe in our future we'll get an officer or someone to come on here and just really share with us and give us some of the meanings of how sexual abuse is viewed in the criminal justice system. Tonight, I want to share with you. It's been on my heart, and I've been pulling and asking for mothers or especially mothers, but people's parents, guardians. I hear teachers. When you hear these stories about people that have been abused, or when people share their stories about sexual abuse, rape, or all the information, when people come and inform you about their experiences, non consensual. What are we doing about it? I find, in my experience, it seems to me when it comes to mothers, and I can share my story a little bit, that the mothers seem to either turn a deaf ear. Number one, I believe it is initially shocking if she have not been paying attention. If she felt that her children were in a secure atmosphere and she felt that her children were safe, or she felt that her family was trustworthy and maybe had no idea that these things were going on. Maybe she didn't have an experience, or maybe she had blocked her experience out. What happens when we're telling our mothers, our friends, our people that we're trusting with our story for the first time, what happened when you share these stories. And if you have any input, please do me a great favor and share with me and let me hear your story. I was listening to a young lady on, she said that she, she used to always clam in the bed with her mother and her father, and as a little child, and it was fun, it was safe. But then one day her mother went out of town, and her father came and said to her, "Daughter, will you come get in bed with me and cuddle with me because I feel a little lonely tonight?" Well, the daughter was like 15 years old, and she's thinking, no. So she said she just went on about her business. You know, when you kind of like kind of ignore the situation, which oftentimes I find people do. They try to ignore the initial priming or what have you, or the initial invite. Sometimes we're in that position and we may ignore it. And so she says she went to bed, and she fell asleep. And then she felt her father touch her on the shoulder and wake her up and say, "Come on, get into bed with me." So she says she went and got into bed with her own birth father, you know, probably groggily and sleeping, and got into bed with her own birth father. And as she went to sleep, she said she felt his hand around her waist tightly. And then she felt him groping on her breasts. Now just think about that. Your natural born father, birth father. And it doesn't matter what role, but that's kind of very intense when it comes to the trust factor. So she says she jumped up, ran in the shower. She said she tried to wash herself. She felt unclean, and she went to bed. She didn't get into the story. Did she tell anybody? But so her mother left her there with her own birth father, not knowing that he had excelled in his state of mind to a place that he would want to actually receive comfort from his daughter. I remember my first experience with my mother's common law husband of 18 years. He had got out the penitentiary. He had been in there like 2 years and came and got us from Detroit, and we went there, and I remember just want to jump off that Greyhound bus. Matter of fact, my mother sent me and my sister alone on the Greyhound to meet him in Chicago and stay there until she eventually pack up and whatever come. And it was a terrible experience. He didn't have any place to live. We slept with him at the foot of the bed. I remember sleeping at the foot of the bed in a one little twin bed, and you know, nothing sexual or anything. But later on, about a year or two afterwards, maybe a year or so after, I know I was in the 8th grade, he woke me up in the middle of the night and asked me did I want to come and smoke a cigarette. And I was a cigarette smoker then, yes, in the 8th grade. And I smoked the cigarette. I wasn't thinking anything because he had never done anything. And by this time, I guess I was, how old are you in the 8th grade? About 13. And then I smoked a cigarette. There was some kind of black and white movie, and I just went to bed. And I didn't think anything of it. I don't know if he had any further plans because he did not pursue me any further until about a year or two later, till I was like 15, half going 16. But so the next experience I had, it was during the summertime months too. I remember it being the summertime months because it wasn't the school months. He had, you know, these people that commit these kind of crimes, they do some planning. So sometimes I was speaking with my husband tonight, and he said, "Do you mean you really believe that your mother didn't know? He says, but I don't know if he said a woman can be in a room and she'll know that another woman is attracted to her own man or whatever, or her husband. But I think these issues are just somewhat different. You're not looking at your child as another woman at this point. So when I was about, like I said, almost 15, he was always nice, and even though we hated our living condition because we had left a much better condition in Detroit, and we had came into this condition, and he was, just mean and obnoxious, and so we really didn't like him. We had lost the love for him. And he came into my room and stuck his tongue in my ear and smashed my breast down. And I told my mother. So this is what I'm talking about tonight. I told my mother right away the next day because he hadn't sexually assaulted me yet. And I told her, which that was an assault too. But I told her, and she had a meeting with just him and I, with no one else. And he tried to make light of it. And she just sat there. I said, "You did do it." "Yes, you did." And he said, "Oh, well, what kind of feel was it?" I said, "You know what kind it was because you did it." So here you have a mother just sitting there, and here you have me looking at her eye to eye, waiting for her to protect me, waiting for her to do something. And I believe oftentimes people go into shock. What do you think about that? Do you believe that my mother went into shock? Did you believe my mother went into denial? Let me explain to you when I'm saying shock. Hi, Celeste. Hi, Gwen. Let's see who's on here. Hi, Sheila. Or hi, Brian. Shock. Shock. Let me tell you when I say some of these people go into shock. Shock freezes the brain, feeling of fogginess, unable to think straight, out of body experience, pain, maybe chest pain. Psychological shock is when you experience a surge of strong emotion and a corresponding physical reaction in response to a typical unexpected stressful event. I believe oftentimes when we hear things like this, when you hear about a little baby being molested by a grown man, when we read about these things, I think sometimes it's too much to the normality of our mindset. It's just too much. And I believe not only do our mothers turn, because it's so hard for me to get mothers to come on here and talk about their experience when they heard about their children being sexual abused. When you ask them what did they do, you hear all kinds of things. I hear girls say that their mothers would tell them, well, you shouldn't have sat on his lap. Well, it was the clothes. I've heard girls say their mother told them it was the clothes that you wore. It was the way you behave. You was kind of aggressive anyway. Well, you was having sex with the little boys in the neighborhood anyway. Well, I've heard all these stories. And it's so hard to get mothers to come on and just tell their truth, tell their fears, tell their embarrassment, tell their shock without being put down. And we really don't have a right to judge anybody's behavior in this life, because life and experience like this is very tragic and very stressful. And I know we want to be the judge and the jury, and sometimes people say, why did you continue to love your mother? Because I loved her for who she was. She was my mother, and I had to forgive her for what she didn't do. So if you are a mother out there and you've had a child that experienced sexual abuse, will you contact me, DM me, and let's talk and let's see if we can have a conversation with you about some of these things. And these things, conversations, is not to try to bring embarrassment to your family, but let me tell you, it's time to uncover. It's not to try to promote um, putting one person down and lifting one person up. It happens so oftentimes in every kind of community in our world today. It is to expose and bring an awareness, to be protective and to hear our voice. We don't want to be silent anymore. We don't want to be quiet. And just like we hearing men today saying, I can't breathe, I'm saying it. I can't breathe in this silence. I can't breathe when we're acting like nothing is okay. And another thing that I noticed, and it's not okay. Another thing that I noticed, when you have people that have been sexually abused by, and you know that it has happened, we shut down. We turn a deaf ear. We just shut down. Hi, Andrea, how are you? We turn a deaf ear. We shut down. Why? Because we don't know what to do. And we would rather just go on. I think a lot of times a mother, she must feel bad when she sees these type of things, hear this. Oftentimes she don't know what to do. What do you do when you were informed? Mother that heard of sexual misconduct, but she was shocked to hear. What happens? So from my experience, I think it was easier to go and medicate the pain. I know that it broke my mother's heart. I know that it breaks so many of your heart. It breaks your spirit. I know it hurts. It goes to a place of shock that you don't want to deal with. It goes to a place that we don't want to face. It goes to a place that if we can just cut it off right here and act like it didn't happen, and let's just move forward in life. But I'm telling you, it has to be dealt with. And I want to say, because someone informs you, it does not make it your fault. Even sometimes I've seen it repeatedly happen in the same household. I've heard of it repeatedly happen. And the mothers, the aunts, they just turn a deaf ear and they don't say anything. I think sometimes you do go into shock. And I'm not trying to just give grace to people that hear about it. But when a child or someone you love and come and tell you that someone you love has hurt you, I think you go into shock. I know that I did, because someone I love came and told me that. And I was in a state of confusion. I was in such a state that 1 minute, like the Bible, 1 minute I want to do good and 1 minute I want to do bad. I was in such a state of unbelief or disbelief that I think mentally and emotionally I could not handle it. And then in our communities, I didn't have a support system. Not one came to my rescue. Thank God for my church. But not one came to my rescue in my family where my expectation was to say, hey, we hear you. It's going to be all right. And I repeatedly say that because some of us as a unit, as a family, we're supposed to be interdependent. We should show concern. But I believe we get shocked and we shut down emotionally. And so it's easier, like for some people, to go medicate with drugs, alcohol, to just turn their backs completely on the conversation, to just turn their backs completely on the victim, to turn their backs completely. And you know what we do, and we're good at judging. Like, my mother didn't do it, but she was judged. They left him out of it. She was judged. She was put down. You know what they said? Why did she let that man do that? Why didn't she say anything? She let that happen to them kids. She was like tormented, given the red letter. It had became all her fault. So I think oftentimes that is why people don't want to deal with it, because we as a community, we don't offer help, we don't extend support, we don't take cover. And I'm telling you, and anybody that has heard that someone in their family or their children or their grandchildren or their loved ones, it could be a neighbor, I think the first thing that happened, you go in shock unless you meet one of them strong people that's ready to fight a battle. Some people is just ready to fight. But oftentimes it's like, be quiet. I'm telling you that when we are unaware, when your mother is unaware, and then when you tell her, so now you have a lot of, not only do you have the hurt of the experience of the violence of the sexual abuse, now you have the separation and the division of that family, of that child, looking at the mother. Because for a long time I was really angry at my mother. I was angry because she didn't know what to do. And I remember one auntie said, I had came home from school one day, and one of my aunties said, it's hard to choose between a man and a child. What do y'all say about that? Hi, Veronica. She told me to my face, to a 16-year-old face with no place to go, it is hard to choose between a man and your child. And my mother sat there and didn't say a word. What do you all think about that? Is it hard for you to choose? Is it because we have to keep our houses? We have to keep our finances? Or are we in a state of shock and we just don't know what to do? I want to hear from you. Well, what do we have here? I think it is just too much for her, and she may have been in shock, surprise, sexual abuse of her child. Sis, I believe you are right. It is too much, but what do you do if it's too much for the mother? What do you think? How do you think it was for the child? If it's too much, I'm 16. Like the little girl in the Tyler Perry movie. Remember when the boyfriend, what was that? I Can Do Bad by Myself. And remember when the boyfriend tried to molest the little girl, and the girlfriend put him in the tub and was getting ready to shock him? Remember that? She didn't answer. And sometimes I've heard women say they just go on mute. And I had a conversation with someone that was telling me about some of the series in their lives and how life made them shut down. And for the first time, it seems that my mother has passed on, but I could hear the voice of my mother, that in these violent environments, sometimes you are just shut down. A person don't know what to do. A mother don't know what to do. A grandmother don't know what to do. And if you're full of pride, and if you're one of them image makers, want everybody to think that Want everybody to think that nothing's happened to you and nothing has ever happened to you. And just look at our outward. Do you see my Mercedes? Do you see my house? Do you see what I drive? Do you see who I am? I can't afford to expose my pain. I can't afford to expose what is really going on in my house. We have a lot of that. And that brings a lot of silence in our families. I can't afford for uncle to go to jail. What did Gwen say? She said, but not impossible. It's hard. Yes, it's hard. So I am trying to extend grace to that daughter, to that child, to that neighbor, to that boy, to that girl who went and told somebody and they didn't do nothing about it, and you still mad. And you're still upset at that person, not the person who did the actual crime and the actual abuse, but you're angry for the one that you told, or you're angry for the people that sat around and allowed it. I'm telling you to seek help so you can let that go, so you can move on. Because listen, oftentimes they are in shock. I make no excuse, but they are in shock. They are in trouble. They do have problems. They don't know what to do. And as we seen in that movie when Taji put that when she threw that, was getting ready to throw that electric radio in there and shock him, and he ran on about his business. Oftentimes, I believe that some of you don't have the strength. You don't have the strength that you stand up and tell everybody about. You don't have the strength that you perceive, want us to perceive you as being strong, and you don't want people to know. But I'm telling you that this is across the board. I have heard over and over and over again, if the person didn't pursue and didn't go all the way, there was a time in all of our families, in our history, that someone has maybe touched somebody in your family in the wrong way, and you don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be embarrassed, but we do have to get past these conversations. We do have to have these conversations, grandma, auntie, teacher. Even the teachers don't want to hear it, but we have to listen. We didn't want to listen to the women, and they're finally getting some resolve. And it's never too late, but we do need to watch for our children. Watch for your children. Be concerned for your children. Gwen said, defend yourself emotionally, spiritually, by seeking help from spiritual family members. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you have been faced with this problem. Well, yes, and these situations take us into very, very dark places. So my heart goes out to those women and to those people that has heard these stories and didn't do anything about it. And blame yourself, sit around in guilt, and still not talking about it. I say find your voice. Find your voice. And always find a place of apology if the person is available for you to apologize or ask forgiveness or to bring healing in their life. I'm going to share with you a little bit about something I wrote in this book. I did put in a lot of details, and I the half has not been told, and I'm sure as we share our stories, you can't tell it all. But make sure you get a copy of this book. And I know it brings breakthrough. I've heard it brings breakthrough. And I want to say to all of you that are calling in, those of you that want to say something but don't say something, I promise you, I won't name your name. I promise you that it will be in confidentiality. Sometimes we just need chat to chat. Because I got a phone call last week after Why Should I Be Ashamed? And this woman was sharing her story, but it was like the voice of my mother. I could understand my mother's pain because of what she was sharing with me as a mother whose child later told her that she had been sexual abused. And her mother was in total shock. And one thing we cannot do when our children, our friends, our loved ones is telling us these stories, don't be, number one, don't be quick to judge. Number two, don't be quick to ask questions. You need to let this marinate for a little bit. Write it down, put it on a tape recorder. But if your child says Uncle Ben did such and such, then just hear what that person is saying, okay? I think where we make a mistake, we try to defend. We try to, how you see Uncle Ben is different from my experience with Uncle Ben. I see people all the time on Facebook lifting up the people that had raped and molested and violated me. Oh, they just go on and they just act like they're wonderful. And sometimes I want to scream, that's a rapist, that's a pervert, you know. And some of them have been raped by these people too, and they act like, oh, these are my beautiful family members. And I just look at them, and maybe that's their way of being forgiven. Maybe that's their way of forgetting, and I cannot allow it to affect me. It wouldn't be, it's no different when a criminal is let out of jail after he's murdered your child. It's no different. That's how I feel. It's no different. But for some reason, we want to put, you know, we like to categorize certain situations that go over there. And I know a lot of you deal with this sexual issue. That's why you can't come in here. You can't chime in. You don't say anything. And you're in a lot of pain. You can't commit in relationships. You can't you won't speak up. So you smother your pain and you press it down. Sometimes people oppress it by being very successful. They try to be super successful. And I just want to say, keep on keeping on. Get through your issues. Get through your problems. Get through your situation. Hey, Sister Vicky, how you doing? What am I saying that is so true, Vicky? It's good to see you. And another thing. I always say, put the blame to the criminal that committed the crime. I'm not just trying to cover up for my mother, but my mother did not do these things to me. She did not rape me. She did not sexually abuse. And I know she didn't want that to happen. And when it happened, she just didn't have the strength. She was on mute because she was violated too. She was on mute because she didn't have no support system. That's why we have to open up and be able to be supportive. Stop asking these bad questions. Stop asking them, are you sure? What did you have on? And things like that. You should tell that child, I hear you and I believe you. Tell that person, that woman, that grown man. I hear grown men are beginning to confess, and I'm happy that these men are beginning to confess. If you ever get opportunity to go on TED Talk and listen to some of those people talk about sexual abuse, there was a man on there that said all his life they was asking him, are you a man or a mouse? So when he was violated and raped by a friend of his, all he can think was, am I a man or a mouse? And you know, we always try to keep men in a certain place. But violence is violence. Wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter how old you are, who it happens to. It's not a great experience. Let me say, I'm sure that women have an ideal that their men are exemplifying some wrong intentions. Do y'all really believe that? Sometimes I think we want to, in my mother's case, I think she wanted a family. She wanted a relationship. She wanted love. And she was so misconstrued about love because the abuse that she experienced. She should have ran and never came back just from the physical abuse in the former times when we were young. And when he came back this second time, he didn't want to beat her because he wanted to keep the kids around. So he didn't beat her because he knew if he beat her, she'd run away. But so he just did a lot of threatening things. But it seems that we should have more discernment. So I'm saying to you, pay attention, have a conversation, find you somebody that's stronger than you, find you somebody like I believe Sister Gwen said, find spiritual leaders. But Gwen, if you were listening to me last week, sometimes the church is not available. They don't want to deal with it. You see the church, all the molesting and rapes that go on in our churches from our pulpits and our altar boys and things like that. But you have to find somebody, mother, you have to find some strength. Or what I wanted my mother to do, send me back to Detroit. Put me somewhere away. When you know that I'm telling you what's going on, just let that child go. If you just rather have that man, let that child go. And that was hard for her, but I don't understand. It's very confusing. You rather have your child to be hurt by your man than send your child off somewhere. Hey, I'd rather been like Moses. Moses' mama put him on a little straw basket and sent him on his way. And that's what some of us need to do. Put our children in a little basket and send them on their way, because the tragedy and the mental things that I experienced in this life, I should have not had to experience no child. And the tragedy is that the people in his family made me feel like something was wrong with me. We reversed it. Made my mother feel like something was wrong with her. She was weak. And not one of them, from my knowledge, well, only one, stepped to him and told him out. That was his niece. She used to cuss him out and throw something at him all the time because she hated what he was doing to us. And I'm wondering, did she ever experience that? Was she's passed on too. But she was the only one that would really stand up and tell him, you need to stop doing what you're doing to these kids. But it would always happen at a family reunion, a family function, you know, a place where you can manifest. So I'm just trying to say, let's not continue to act like we're in shock, mothers, friends. Let's not continue to turn the deaf ear. Let's not continue to act like you don't want to talk about this on Tuesday. Maybe this is your breakthrough, these conversations we have, and why should we be ashamed? Why should I be ashamed? Maybe this is your breakthrough. So it won't go from generation to generation to generation to generation, because somewhere I think deep in my mother's heart, because of something had happened to her, she felt like, oh, you're going to be all right. That little abuse, and she had a lot of brokenness and a lot of pain. What does Miss Florine say? She says, I totally agree with you. You are so helpful for me. I am getting strength from you and God because I am struggling with, with my situation. Thank you so much. And you are so welcome. And even for you to be on here is strong. You are strong to listen. And you let those layers come out. Just let it come out. And if you need to talk, I told you we can talk. And everything that you have experienced, you can overcome. Everything that you are even dealing with emotionally, you can overcome. And there's a deep conversation that I haven't even got to yet, and I want to get to. It's going to be so deep. It's going to be so hard to deal with even me. But you know, it's when your body plays tricks on you and tell you that you've had a great time doing this abuse. That's going to be a deep conversation, but we need to have it, because those are the psychological issues, that the things, that the changes that we go through when we've been defiled, when we've been violated. And we have to stand up to people that don't know no better. We have to stand up to the people, Florian, when they say, why didn't y'all tell anybody? Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell your mother? Why didn't you run? Hey, if it was that simple, wouldn't we have done something? So I want to say to all of you that are on here tonight, you are strong. Continue to share this story so our people can get some freedom. So our children. And you know, I'm a grandmother now. And I know that I'm kind of overprotective. And I know that there's only so much you can do. There's only so much trust that we can have. But I'm telling you, let's gather around each other and be protective of each other. And let's not let everybody get hold to our children. Let's stop letting Johnny and go down in the basement with so-and-so. And I know that every person is not a pervert, and we're not saying that, but we're just protecting our children till they get of the right age. Let's see. What can we as men do to make it easy for men to share the abuse that have inflicted on some child? That's a whole nother conversation, because I think you see what's happening now. These men, these women are telling and telling. They told on Cosby, they told on the singer, and they're going to prison. So a lot of them are not going to tell on themselves. I don't know what you can do. You let me know. But I do know this, that we better keep our eyes open. Our society is sick as it is, and we try to play like it. We try to play dress up like nothing is going on. We try to play dress up in our homes and our churches like nothing is going on. And you know we are a sick society. And sexual abuse is a crime, and it's violence. So I want to share a little bit about my book with you all, and I'm glad, I hope that tonight that I said something. My focus on tonight really was to give grace unto the shocking parent, and even that parent when the child told them and they didn't have the right, correct response. I'm telling you to stand up and live anyhow. You got to move forward. It's a shock when things, and I did talk about earlier, psychological shock is when you experience a surge of strong emotion. What do you do and then your brain just shut down, or your mind just say, go get you a drink, or your response is, what are you talking about? As if you didn't even hear. My mother was in total silence, and that told me that oftentimes she was on mute, because if she had opened her mouth, this man had put his fist in my mother's mouth, knocked all of her teeth out the front of her mouth on several occasions. He had blacked her eyes before. He had stomped her, kicked her. He had beat her with his fists before. So, you know, he had did that when I was like in the 3rd grade and 4th grade. He used to beat her. You know, they would have those kind of traumas. So I'm asking you to give some grace to these broken vessels who you have shared your story with and they didn't respond correctly. Am I making myself clear? And then as you give them grace, you'll get some strength. Because do you know, every time we give grace, there's a strength that comes in us. There's a love that comes in us. There's something that builds up. And we have to let go of some things that we don't have the power to change. And we only can change ourselves. I never was able to tell my mother my story. I never was able to change her perspective. And sometimes her perspective about me was very painful because when I had to leave home and come back as an adult and see her with him, like nothing had ever happened. And then I had to watch her continue to be with him. Then after a while, I couldn't take it no more. And then, you know, it's a lot of things that go through our emotions. Let me share a little bit about this book, because I think we are on page 139 of the book. Do you have the book? You must DM me and get the book. A Guardian's Prayer. On the back of this book, I wrote different chapters about things, ways to pray. A guardian's prayer when you are unsure. Just because a parent say, I don't believe. My mother said, I don't believe, but I knew she believed. What she really was meaning, not that I don't believe you, Sheila, but I'm in disbelief that this is my life. I'm in disbelief that this is my story. I'm in disbelief that this is what I got to look into. I'm in disbelief that this has happened. And that's what's wrong with some of you. You're in disbelief. You in disarray, you in shock, you don't know what to do. So don't think your mother or your friend or whoever don't believe you. They believe you. The brain just can't handle the pain, okay? The brain cannot handle the pain. You know it's too much. You know it's too much. You know how we were in shock the other week, a few weeks ago when we watched George Floyd? I watched it one time. I was in shock. I mean, I was in disbelief. My brain could not take it. I cannot analyze it. I cannot process watching a human being take their last breath, and I couldn't reach him. I couldn't do nothing about it. And of course, we say to ourselves, if I was there, I would have knocked the man over. The brain can't analyze the pain. So I stopped watching it. And that's what happens to a lot of our people when we tell them what happens. They cannot analyze the pain. They can't analyze the hurt. So they just figure, go take a bath and it'll be over with. Isn't that right? So many times I've heard the tragic stories of sexual abuse. And the grandma, one lady said her uncle abused her so bad and beat her. Just her body was bleeding, and her grandma just said, go take a bath and don't tell nobody. Father God, it says, which art in heaven, I acknowledge your strength. Thank you all once again for listening and sharing and your input today. Thank you so much. Yes. I acknowledge your strength and power in my child's life. Help me to be a loving, nurturing, caring guardian, and to be protector over the children you put in my care. Give me wisdom and information to train up my child according to the principles in your word. Give me discernment and wisdom to acknowledge any problems my child may be confronted with. We all need to pray that. Father, direct me to an open door where I may find help and healing for any problems, past and present, in their life. Father, help me to be just when dealing with any person who has brought hurt, harm, or danger to my child and children everywhere. Father, help me when it's hard to face disappointment of man. Give me an ear to listen to my children. That's what we need. We need an ear to listen. Lord, I don't want to be a paranoid or suspicious. I want to know the truth at all times. Please give me a discerning spirit to know the truth. 1 Corinthians 12:10. Please bring forth the truth today. That's when you kind of wishy-washy. And then on page 139, it says, when the child exposes abuse. Father, I believe this child is telling the truth. Now, please help me find healing and protection for this child. This child is hurting and ashamed, and Lord, only you can renew their strength. Please help them to continue to cope with life while being strong and encouraged, with the assurance of not being alone and unsafe and abandoned. And that's an experience that most sexual abuse people have. They have a feeling of being alone, unsafe, and abandoned. And then after that, you overthink it, and then you you just begin to have a lot of mental challenge, emotional challenges. With the assurance of not being alone enough, safe and abandoned, I cancel every assignment to destroy this child. Please release the angels of the Lord to encamp around them at all times. We put our trust in you, and we will not be afraid. This is a good book. It really is a good book, and I am working on the workbook. And that's what we're doing right now. We're processing our pain. We're processing our anger. We're processing our emotions. We're processing the way that we think. We're changing our trajectory, our life, our future. We're changing, and you are changing. And my friends on here, you are changing. And just like I said on last week when I got that phone call and that woman began to speak about her situation and talk about how she was shut down from her husband. She couldn't even speak. She didn't even know. She was so on mute. And then the church told her, oh, just stay in there if he's not kicking you or cutting you, things like that. And that was even more detrimental emotionally. When you're going to the people that I hear some of you saying go get help from, and they're telling you, oh, it's going to be all right. Hi, Miss Orly. Hi, Miss Brooks. Love you. I love all of you. And I'm telling you that we can get strong together. We can get through these conversations and these issues. And I come in here every week because every week, do you know that people are beginning to get healed and strength from you talking, from your input? Because this is saying I'm not alone. This is saying I'm okay. I am beautiful and wonderfully made. And it doesn't matter what experience. We don't have to let those experiences make us less than what we're supposed to be. Your future is bright, and keep on pulling up. Keep on pulling through. We're not depressed. We're not oppressed. We're not down. We're not broken. We have that tenacity to go forward. And for those of you who has committed these crimes and you are just so embarrassed, you need to I would recommend that you find a not only just a prayer life, but a man's club, a woman's club. Find someone that you can talk to and share with. And if there are subjects in this area of sexual abuse that you want to talk about, you want me to communicate, you want me to get with our staff here and talk about how to bring these out, hey, just shoot us. You can shoot us a letter in the P.O. box. You can download it. DM us. I know that everybody don't want everybody to know, because everybody is not ready to just come to the fullness of their story. But if there's topics that you would like to see how we would address them, make sure you reach out to me. And I want to say thank you once again. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. Be prayerful. Don't quit. I love you too. Love all of you. Be prayerful. Don't quit. Pray for me. Pray for my strength. Pray for my family. Because when you're trying to stand up, you're often on the front line. You're under attack. But greater is He that is in me than he that is in the world. And if God be for me, He's more than the whole world against me. And I'm not doing this for any kind of destruction, but I'm doing this to add strength, faith, confidence, help to a generation that has been kept silent. And yes, we are going to talk about it. So we hope to see you next week, same time, 7 o'clock. And be encouraged. And thank you once again for purchasing our books, starting your own book clubs, starting your own conversations. Thank you so much.